Jono, let's go back to that tweet, because the tweet was talking specifically about a child, and a good way to wean one's child, and the types of food that we should be weaning our children onto. I don't think there is a South African out there who will disagree with Professor Noakes when he says stop feeding your kids refined foods, sugary drinks. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, but you're a food guy. That's what you do and you love. And of course, I'm sure you feed a lot of children. You mentioned to me that you've got a child on the way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts when it comes to children and the low-carb, high-fat diet?
So our stance and my stance is that it's not necessary to put your kid on a ketogenic diet, but we also believe
what is a ketogenic
diet is a diet of less than 50 grams of net carbohydrates a day.
All right.
So yeah, if you wanted to go into ketosis, but we also don't think that it's unsafe. Stance A, and the second half of that is that LCHF is a diet low in refined carbohydrates and sugar, high in good quality fats, vegetables and meat, and that is just normal good food. So if LCHF is just normal good real food, then what could possibly be wrong with it? I also strongly believe that, and this is a lot of the research that Prof's going to publish in Raising Superheroes, is that the first 2 years of childhood development is when the brain goes through the fastest development stage. And you need to be supplying the little baby's body with the most nutrients possible to encourage brain development. And carbohydrates do not encourage brain, muscle, or bone development. So surely you have to be providing the child with the right nutrients to develop its brain. And it so turns out that protein and fat really help build the brain. So why is giving a child protein and fat bad if that's what a human body needs to build brain and muscle?
Let's clear up this one big question that's come through from our social networks and from comments on our Health 24 articles. The Real Meal Revolution and yourself, along with Professor Tim Noakes, aren't telling moms to stop breastfeeding their children.
No.
Right.
Yeah. No. We say that breastfeeding is, and when I say we, I mean we as the collective we. We all support each other's opinions, and I am not a scientist or a nutritionist.
But you are a food guy.
But I'm a food guy,
right.
Yeah. And I think, every species has food that it's supposed to eat. And I think the most obvious food that you're supposed to eat is the food that your mother manufactures naturally and genetically to feed you. So breast milk has to be the healthiest thing in the world for a little infant. There's no other way about it. And then what happens after that, is sort of where human intervention is required. So we say that breastfeeding up to 24 months is absolutely fine, advised. You shouldn't start weaning any earlier than 5 or 6 months.
Which again is not going against what the Department of Health or the World Health Organization is saying.
Nothing insane about that.
Right. Everyone agrees 6 months of exclusive breastfeeding.
But it's what you wean your child onto. And I think that's where the controversy starts, because a lot of people say that rice cereal is what you should be weaning your child onto.
In fact, I think we were all weaned onto rice cereal. It was just the done thing.
Yeah, exactly. And what we're saying is, in fact, Canada has just changed their dietary guidelines, and there's a huge iron deficiency amongst teenagers at the moment in America, and they believe it's from lack of iron in the diet from an early age. And iron-rich foods are things like liver, red meat, fish and chicken. So we should be including foods like that into the baby's diet from as early as possible.
Jono, there's so many South African parents who say, when they look at this model, yikes, it's expensive. But you've just mentioned liver, for instance, that isn't. So on a small South African budget, South Africans are struggling. This can be done.
Yeah, and that's a multi-dimensional argument as well, because the reason, so I don't think that this diet's expensive. I think that really unhealthy food is really cheap. And if you look at it like that and understand why it's so cheap, it's all subsidized. So all grains, all of those foods are subsidized by the government, and that's what brings the price down. By bringing the price down, they become the sort of preferred foods to buy, and because of that, people spend all their money on the cheapest foods, and that's why I think there's a huge health crisis. So if the subsidies worked differently and had started working differently 50, 60, 100 years ago, I think that our health situation would be slightly different. point A. And point B is there are cheap foods that are really healthy, but there are some people who only have sort of like £5 a day to spend on food. So I don't think at this point in time, with the level of poverty we have in our country, it's something that can be immediately addressed. I think it's a long, slow process. But yes, liver, eggs are super cheap. £2 an egg. If you ate 5 eggs in a day, you'd be perfectly healthy. An egg is an absolute superfood. It's got good protein, lots of good fats, a whole world of nutrients. And yeah, I mean, if you just spend £10 on eggs a day, you'd certainly survive. Yes, and liver's great. So all offal is actually very nutrient dense, the organ meat of any animal.
Tell us about Raising Superheroes. This is the next project, and I know that you're quite excited about it, so tell us about that.
Okay, so Raising Superheroes has been a sort of dream since the first book launched. And everyone said, you know, that's great, you know, we understand how to lose weight now, but what about our children? And the truth is, when they asked that question, we weren't sure. So Prof had to do a lot of research, and we had to look at everything, at the childhood guidelines. And for me, it was really fun because we were sort of, we couldn't really copy any other baby books because there was nothing out there that really spoke, you know, from the same place where we were speaking from. So Raising Superheroes for us is sort of a dream come true. We had a lot more time to get it ready. I don't know if you know, the first book went from the day we started writing, it went to print 63 days later.
I heard so.
Yeah, so we rushed that, and that's why the first 10,000 copies had 1 or 2 errors in it. This one's taken us a lot longer, and even you know from an art side, the photographs are all beautiful, the light's amazing. It's a really attractive book. It's really well written. Our editor Tim, a different Tim, took great care in making it an entertaining read. A dietitian, Bridget, who's got 20 years experience in pediatric dietetics, and she's a huge low-carb supporter, went into great detail in the nutritional advice we give parents. So it's not just a wild collection of broad sweeping statements. It's actually a very well thought out and very practical book to use. And then at the back, there's just another brilliant essay from Tim slamming industry. I think there are going to be a lot of people that hate him at the end of the year.
But really, if anything, Professor Tim Noakes, and by extension everybody in the community, the folks at Real Meal Revolution, have got South Africans thinking about what we put into our bodies on a very baseline level. I think more South Africans are reading labels, more South Africans are asking, but where did that come from? And why are you telling me I have to be eating this?
Absolutely. If you just had dinner with anyone over the last year, I'm sure someone would have mentioned Banting. And I think there's...
Or somebody would have said, no, I can't eat that because I am Banting.
Banting. Have you got a Banting option? So I think it's great that people are talking about nutrition. It's the biggest killer. I mean, I read a crazy stat that Jamie Oliver always punts. He says something like 2% of all deaths come from gun violence. And a huge percentage of them come from obesity, which is from food, and no one ever talks about it. And now people are talking about food, they're talking about health and nutrition. And what I really love about this book and what it's going to do is people are going to start talking about what the best food is for their kids. So I put in I was writing an email to someone the other day and explaining why I think Raising Superheroes is important. And at the moment, if you go into any supermarket, you see superheroes pasted on a whole lot of junk food. You know, buy my chocolate pops or whatever, and you've got this superhero or this little toy, and that food will not make you a superhero. It won't make you strong. It won't make you clever, and it won't make you healthy. And the reason we're proud of this book is because it's going to teach parents how to feed their children so that they can become superheroes.
So when can we anticipate getting our hands on a copy?
Okay, we're going to launch on the 1st of spring, so the 1st of September 2015.
And tell us how we can follow along the Real Meal Revolution on social networks, please.
Okay, so follow us on Twitter at @real_meals. Like us on Facebook, which is the Real Meal Revolution. And then please visit our website, which is realmealrevolution.com, and sign up for our newsletter for all updates.
Brilliant. John O'Proudfoot, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jerusha.